Welcome to Meet the Author, where you can join in on insightful conversations with best-selling and award-winning indie published authors. Your hosts today are Rob and Joan, who themselves are indie published authors, book publicists, and paranormal investigators with Tampa Bay Spirits, based in Tampa Bay, Florida. Thanks for dropping by. And now, on with the show.
And hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Joan. We're so glad that you decided to join us in our audience today, whether you're watching this in the live show, which is pre-recorded, or if you're listening on a podcast. We really appreciate that you're in the audience.
Yes, we do. Feel free to make comments. If you have any comments that you'd like to address to us directly, it's carternovels@aol.com, and we will get back with you.
You can actually make comments on our YouTube channel too.
That is true.
Meet the Author.
Yeah. Let's see what we got coming up. We got Voice of Indie podcast after this show. I'm not sure since we're recording this, I'm not sure who their guest is going to be tonight, but stay tuned at the end of this show for good details. We run a little ad for them that tells what the details are on how to get over to their podcast. Episode Rewind this Saturday, January 28th, would be episode 62. It's author Nick Chiarkis. Mystery thrillers, I believe. Yeah. That was a good episode. And then next Wednesday will be February 1st already, believe it or not, episode 94. It'll be the Magnolia Bluff Crime Chronicles Reveal Part 1 for 2023.
There's season 2.
That's season 2, folks.
Can you believe it?
Book 10 and 11 will be talked about by Linda Pirtle and Cindy Davis. Will be the first two.
The first 2 in season
books.
2.
Yeah, so that's 7 o'clock next Wednesday, and that would be February 1st.
So all of you that have been following Magnolia Bluff for a year, yikes.
Yeah, no kidding. I wanted to let you know Siren Hunter's coming out real soon, folks, next month here, right around the corner. If you want to get a advanced copy of that, pre-order at the address that's on your screen. It's Mayan Art International, with INTL being international, at yahoo.com. Get your name on the mailing list. You don't owe anything right away. But get your copy. I think it's $12 if you order it in advance.
If you pre-order.
Yeah, for the paperback.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we got that. I think we're ready. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see if Jeffrey's ready. Come on in. Hi, Jeffrey.
How are you, Rob and Joan? Good to be with you.
We're good. We're glad that you could join us today. I think
glad to be here.
Listen a little bit of your face.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
There we go.
That's better.
Now you're getting up in the world.
Gotta adjust that screen.
I know.
There you go. It helps, right?
And you just left for a minute, and that's what happened.
There you go. So, Jeffrey, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. I've been here for 14 years after retiring from the East Coast, basically the New York, New Jersey area, where I was a journalist for 35 years. The last 2/3 of that much of that was in New York. I was business and finance banking writer and editor. So I learned a lot about that side of the world. I started as a general interest newspaper reporter in New Jersey. And, did certainly have done a certain amount of freelancing along the way. And when I retired, I didn't want to continue as a journalist per se, but I certainly want to continue as a writer. And that's what I've done. So I've published 4 books since I retired. One was actually a collected volume of poetry that I'd kind of been working on and off for all the years. And then there are 3 novels. And the latest one, which we'll talk about certainly, is Squeeze Plays, which was published in June.
Yeah, let me bring that up as long as we're here. Let me bring up your cover for Squeeze Plays. Here it is. I can see the cover and it's self-explanatory if you can see it. But for those who are just listening, could you please describe your cover?
Yeah, I can. This was actually my concept, and we went through a couple of iterations with the art directors of the publisher. But what it's showing is the kind of a Manhattan skyline, because much of the book is set in Manhattan. And you see these skyscrapers, but they're kind of being bent because there's a belt, a squeeze belt of money that's going around the middle of them, and it has a Russian hammer and sickle insignia, which will give you some indication that there's some Russian interference at play.
Right. That's why I said it was self-explanatory. If you can see it, you pretty much know what the book is going to be about.
And I would say that there are a number of books. If you look at Amazon, there are a number of books called Squeeze Play.
Oh,
I think I'm the only Squeeze Plays because there are multiple Squeeze Plays in the book. We're talking about pressure being exerted in one form or another, financial, blackmail, sabotage, etc.
interesting. Unfortunately, probably very close to the truth in reality. Yes. Right?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. I love this cover on this book that I'm going to bring up, Undetected. This is a great cover.
This was a happy accident. I don't want to have casting aspersions. This publisher actually went under about 6 months after this was published.
Oh,
but I gave them, part of the book involves the use of a certain poison, which comes from these types of flowers. So they found the flowers, and I said I wanted something sinister to go with it, and they came up with a snake.
Yeah.
And so I thought, it's a very dramatic cover.
Yes.
It was the first one they showed me. I said, let's go.
Yeah.
What was interesting to me was until I brought up a close-up on it, I couldn't tell that was a snake.
Right.
Oh, really? Okay.
I could see the flowers and it looked all nice,
Sure.
but then all of a sudden there's this snake,
Yeah.
and it is very sinister.
Yes, you definitely get that idea.
Yeah.
And it's a black cover. It's a very dark color too.
Yeah.
And then the flowers are bright yellow.
I thought that those might be vines or something in the middle.
Yeah, they really do pop.
Whoa, it's a snake.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah.
Now, this one, Little Miss Sure Shot, you said, is a fictionalized version of Annie Oakley, right?
But this kicked you off on this started your career.
This was my first book. I'm kind of really am interested in historical fiction. I've read a certain amount of it. When it's done well, it can really transport you back to that period. And I won't talk too much more about the genesis. I was certainly interested in that period, and I didn't know that much about her. And then it got very intrigued by, and obviously I knew, in rough terms, her life and her fame. This cover, I actually had to go to Getty Images, and this was one of her posters. It's showing her standing with her rifle and a couple of side shots of her shooting. I actually had to pay a certain amount for this image because it's copyrighted and whatever. And then the publisher was able to work with that.
Yeah. Yes. Now, these pictures, this poster, did it come from when she was traveling around with the Wild West show?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. That is so interesting.
And you can see that she has a number of badges that she had, awards. And she often wore that. It was just part of her costume because she won a lot of awards.
Yeah, she was amazing, wasn't she?
Absolutely astounding.
Well, that must have been fun to do a fictionalized version of her
Yeah,
life.
I didn't want to do a straight biography. Not only had that been done, and I read a couple of them, but it would have involved doing a lot of research, probably in Ohio, where she was from. Mm-hmm. Everybody associates her with the Great Plains in the West. That's really fiction, but. Right. I really thought that there was something to be said in a kind of a novel form, and I look at her life kind of episodically, not year to year, but 10 years later, this was happening. 5 years earlier, this was happening, etc.
When I read your Amazon biography, I wasn't surprised that this was your first fictional book because you majored in history in college, right?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. So you have a love of history to begin with.
Yep.
And
that's where it starts from.
Yeah. And I love history too. And I love historical fiction also. I've found that you can learn so much about historical periods by a well-written historical fiction book.
You can, and a lot of that, of course, anymore is available on the internet. You don't have to closet yourself in a library for 3 months or something.
I know. It's so different, isn't it?
It really is. It's an amazing resource.
We have these little pocket computers that go with us everywhere.
You can do it on your phone.
You can do it on your phone while you're waiting in the doctor's office. You can do a lot of research.
It's true.
It's crazy. It is true. So I've been writing this one book, historical fiction.
It's almost part of history now.
I've been working on it so long. Yeah. But the research has been really difficult. And to do good historical fiction, I think you need to get certain historical facts completely accurate. For one thing, if someone who knows the history is reading the book, they're going to go boop right out of the story if you're not going to be accurate.
And that's what I did with this book. The actual facts and particulars of her life are kind of the scaffolding for the book, and then I just filled it in with my own, kind of riffing on that.
Your own imagination.
Yes.
On what could have been.
Yeah, and who she could have met, where she did go, and perhaps where she could have gone.
Right. That sounds really great. It sounds like a really good book. Yeah. I mean, one I would want to read.
Something you should think about.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you the question that everybody asks.
Joe Conchel, this is for you.
Especially. Are you a plotter or a pantser?
I'd heard you ask Ron that question. I am a number one pantser. I despise the idea of outlining. I think it goes back to probably middle school.
Yeah.
Where, the teacher had you do, number one, Roman numeral 1, and letter 1, and small a, and you're indenting all this stuff. I hated it.
Yeah.
And as a journalist, I never did any of that. I mean, I wrote pieces up to 5,000 or 6,000 words, but what I did was I would block sections and then figure out the order of those sections, but it was never, a formal outline.
Right.
I just recoil at that idea.
I
but
agree.
It works for some people.
It would have sucked all the joy of writing right out of me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm a pantser, and what happens, and it certainly happened in the last 2 novels I wrote. I basically would, I'd start and I'd think, well, where am I going to go next, and what do I want to do with this character? And I'd have a couple of Post-it notes and say, well, I want to get to this and I want to get to that, but I didn't have any order.
Right.
And so it sounds kind of silly, but what I call is kind of a voyage of discovery.
Yes.
Because that's kind of, you kind of figure out where you're going and what these people are going to be doing.
Right.
And then you always have the opportunity to go back and make some alterations and make some changes. And this last book, Squeeze Plays, I had a lot of good advice and thoughts about changes I might be able to make. And I did make a number of changes that I think all worked out for the better. So, it's hard to do it in isolation.
I wonder, is Undetected or Squeeze Plays, are either one of them open to sequels or?
No. That's the kind of the interesting thing about what I've chosen to do is they're all completely standalone books with no continuity at all.
Okay.
I admire people that can do those series, and I'm sure you've talked to a number of them, but that doesn't really appeal to me.
We've written them. The reason I asked that is that obviously if you're writing a series, those characters become very well known to you,
right,
and literally take on a life of their own.
Right.
And they actually sometimes take over where the book is going, and you end up in places you didn't expect to go. Right. Just out of curiosity, did that happen to you with any of your books, where you came to a point where you felt your character was taking you in a place that maybe you hadn't anticipated going?
No, I like to feel that I still had control of them. And, and then you get into, all the MFA programs, and some of these professional editors talk about things like point of view.
Yeah. And
point of view, I mean, to me, that's a little pressy use. I mean, most readers don't care or know what POV is. They want a good story. They want a good book, and they're not really. They don't want to go into the weeds. So, the one editor I had who got very involved with POV, and she and I had a kind of a parting of the ways, partly over that. I just felt it was getting it was just a bit of too much obstruction.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have very strong views on POV. As a matter of fact, having this show, we know many people have strong views on POV.
Okay.
I think it's kind of a buzzword right now. I think it's something everyone's talking about.
I'm not sure everybody understands it, except the people who profess to know.
Yeah. And I think it'll pass, and then there'll be something else that'll come up.
Right.
And it'll be, whoops, do you have to get that? I'm kidding.
Hopefully, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay. Like I said,
it'll stop after a while, I hope.
Sure.
No problem.
It's no problem. I was just making a joke. Our dog may bark, and there's no stopping her.
This is unfiltered. This is
real life.
Yeah, we don't go through and edit this stuff out. It's like, okay, this is happening. It's all right.
Okay, another question that is often asked and people are interested in knowing is, which was your favorite book to write? And let's not forget your poems either.
I think this latest one, Squeeze Plays, was certainly the most complex.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to kind of, it's actually, if you look on Amazon, it's listed as a satire. So there's a lot of satirical elements to this. I mean, I had fun with the names of the characters. I mean, my Russian oligarch, who's the villain, is Maxim Ripovsky, like maximum ripoff. And my main sort of unlikable, unprofessional character is Winston Crum, Crumm. So that was, and I did that right from the get-go. Those were kind of my characters, and then I kind of developed them in part upon, having them named that way.
Yeah, that must have been fun.
It was. I wouldn't say that, certainly, it's positioning the book as a satire is a little strong. It's, it's hard to fit it in an easy label. It's also been, it's a financial thriller. A number of reviewers have called it that. But it's a morality tale set in the world of finance.
Yeah, but making it light with the name.
Yes, absolutely, and that was a lot of fun. So that would be a major element of why I enjoyed writing as much as I did.
Yeah, that sounds really great.
Cool. I think we need to take a break and hear from our sponsors. Everybody sit tight. We'll be right back.
Don't go away.
Welcome to Magnolia Bluff, Texas, a small town in the heart of the Texas Hill Country near Burnett Reservoir. A town where everyone's business is discussed at the local coffee shop. A town where neighbors look out for each other. A town not insulated from murder and mayhem. Which begs these questions. Who is responsible for breaking into quaint Victorian homes? And how are poodles, ghosts, drug cartels, and a Ponzi scheme connected with a serial killer? Caroline McCluskey, the town's librarian, catalogs books using the Dewey Decimal System. When a black and white poodle puppy arrives unannounced, she calls him Dewey. Now, Caroline must catalog events to identify a serial killer in her town.
pick up your copy of The Dewey Decimal Dilemma, now available on Amazon.
They thought the siren was dead. In the novel Siren Song by author George Dismukes, James Harmon shot her twice. Several people saw her dead body sinking slowly into the abyss. But now, in Siren Song 2, evidence suggests that she may still be alive.
She killed that boatload of people. It was her! And she's just getting started!
Angie, that's impossible.
The cold chill up my spine tells me it's not impossible. We've got to start all over again. And this time, do it right.
Siren Song 2. The story continues. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Get your copy today.
At Indie Book Source, you can shop by genre or by author, and you will be buying direct from the author's main purchase link. We offer hundreds of titles in formats that include ebooks, paperback, hardbound, and audiobook. Support an indie author. Visit indiebooksource.com today.
And we're back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody.
Now, let me give everybody a way to reach Jeffrey. Let's see. So his website is J Marsh Books, okay? But that's all, well, some of it's abbreviated. So it's JMARSHBKS.com. That's his website. Remember it. Go there, say hello, buy a book. And let's just say, if you buy one of his books, or if you win one of the books today in the book giveaway, please leave a review. It is really lifeblood to authors.
It is.
And if you just say what it is that you like about it, why, you know, what you found attractive, that's what I do. I read reviews, and there are certain things that I look for. And if that's in there, then I want to buy that book. And that helps everybody. His Facebook page is jeffrey.marshall.9833. I'll just spell that, JEFFREY.MARSHALL. And you all know how to write 9833. And you can find him on Twitter at Jeffrey637122424. There you go.
All sorts of numbers.
Yeah. Social media today. It's great, let me tell you. All right.
All right. So let's see.
You want to read from the book first?
Yeah. Why don't we do that?
Okay. So let me set this up a little bit for you.
Okay.
My one of my main characters I mentioned is Winston Crumb, who's a newspaper publisher, a tabloid publisher. The tabloid's not doing very well. It's losing money. There's a big loan that's been called, so that money isn't going to be forthcoming. And so he's been approached by this Russian, Maxim Rapolsky, and basically Rapolsky says, "So let's have lunch, and I'll talk to you and tell you about my proposition." So here they are, the Four Seasons, famous restaurant in New York, which I described. So he's sitting down with Rapolsky and his associate, Natasha, who was like 6'3" and very imposing. So here we go. After the plates were cleared and Rapolsky had ordered an espresso, Winston had declined coffee, Rapolsky resumed his narrative. He had urged his benefactor to branch out, he said, into real estate and technology and away from raw materials, which the Chinese were ruthlessly scouring around the world. The older man had rejected Rapolsky's advice, so he formed a new company and reached out for other younger Russians who shared his vision. That was 10 years ago. Now and then, Winston's eyes went to Natasha. She leaned gracefully in her chair to look at Rapolsky as he talked. Her straight blonde hair fell straight to her shoulders. Every now and then, she swept her hair past her ears with her long arms in what seemed like a practiced move. Since that time, Rapolsky said, he had moved from Moscow to London and made it his new base of operations. He had named his company Rubicon Investments and expanded its reach into Southeast Asia, Australia, and the US. He was a major investor, he said, in several large technology companies and had bought a number of commercial and residential properties, trophy properties, he said with a thin smile, on each continent. If I can interrupt, what do you have here in New York? Winston asked. Rapolsky mentioned 3 different addresses, 2 on Fifth Avenue, 1 on 6th, none of which Winston recognized. But he should have realized that Rapolsky was an oligarch, the new brand of Russian power player, men who enjoyed the trappings of power and wealth and moved around the world as easily as a bird flits from tree to tree, albeit on private jets. While most tried to stay out of the limelight, others flaunted their influence and their connections to the highest levels of the Russian government. And so, Rapolsky said, now that you know more about me, let's talk business. I've probably talked too much here, but I wanted to make it clear that I have a lot of resources at my disposal. He paused and looked intently at Winston. And I'm prepared to help you, or better put, your company out. So now the cards would be laid on the table. Well, I'm certainly willing to listen, Winston said, trying to sound non-committal. Rapolsky said, this is what I propose. I will advance Star Enterprises $10 million this week with an additional $10 million in 60 days if my conditions are met. I think you'll find this will essentially compensate for the loan that was withdrawn by Whitehall, and there will be no interest charge. This is an investment, not a loan. Winston was stunned both by the offer and the knowledge Rapolsky seemed to have of the company's financial whole. Very generous, Winston managed to say, but how do you know about the Whitehall loan? As I said, I live in London most of the time, Rapolsky said, smiling, and my people are very thorough and very professional in what they do. I guess they are, Winston murmured, and smiled weakly at Natasha, who looked at him impassively. So what are these conditions? Rapolsky, well, first of all, this must not come back to me. I have a number of shell companies, one of which will be making this investment by wire transfer. I'm told that you're not really running the day-to-day operations, which may make things easier. If your financial people are curious about where this came from, you can tell them you don't know. But in any case, they need to accept it. Given your financial situation, that shouldn't be difficult. I see. Cloak and dagger, something Winston had a hard time getting his ample head around. Secondly, I'd like to place some full-page ads in the Star, the newspaper, for my real estate holdings, particularly the residential ones. Nice photos, elegant. I want to expand my beachhead here. Advertisements in your newspaper would help. And for all I would be doing, I would expect those ads would be free. I don't run the advertising area. Rapolsky's smile took a more sinister cast. No, but I'm sure you can exert your influence. Remember, this is one of my conditions. Right, Winston murmured, swirling the water in his glass. And my last condition may be the easiest one. I'd like you to arrange a charity function for me and my company to get introduced to important people here. Again, Winston demurred. I don't have those kinds of things. No, I'm sure not, but I think your wife does. Rapolsky sat back. She's a famous designer. I'm sure she can put together a list of people. Winston bobbed his head. I'm sure she could. Rapolsky, I'd like to do something next month before your Thanksgiving. There should be enough time to arrange that, I think. Winston shrugged. Yeah, I guess so. I can talk to Adrian, but I don't want to tell her about the money. No, certainly not. Tell her you've met me and I'm a friend of the arts who wants to make a major contribution. Let her choose the charity she wants us directed to. He leaned forward with his arms on the table. Okay. Rapolsky sipped his espresso. Well then, I think we can do business, Winston. You have my secretary's number if you have any questions. He extended his hand. Thank you for meeting with me. I'll pick up the check, of course. Winston shook his hand, nodded at Natasha, who nodded back. He realized this was his cue to leave. He gave a quick wave as he walked away and realized that Natasha, who hadn't said a word to him the entire time, had left an impression as exotic almost as an alien with green scales and a set of ferocious-looking teeth.
Wow.
That was very good. That was very good.
It
was kind of scary. I mean,
It's
seriously.
meant to be. It's ominous.
Very. It worked, believe me. because you were reading that and I was thinking, oh, he's in trouble.
So that's Squeeze Plays. That's from Squeeze Plays.
And that was a squeeze play.
And that was definitely.
Yes,
So
yes.
the book giveaway, everybody, get ready to type. Here it is. You'll get a copy. Book giveaway, the first 3 people to email marshwj17@gmail.com will win an ebook copy of Squeeze Plays.
And you've just heard that.
That was what the preview
the reading was from.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So book giveaway, the first 3 people to email marshallj17@gmail.com will win an ebook copy of Squeeze Play. So start typing.
So even if you're listening to this
on the
podcast and you missed the live presentation,
go ahead
and email. Maybe all the
shot.
copies aren't given away,
Right.
Or maybe there'll be another giveaway. Who knows?
Yeah.
You never know until you try. So if you're interested, I'm sure Jeffrey would be happy to hear from anybody that's interested.
Mm-hmm. And like we always say, please leave a review.
Yeah, if you read it, give a good review.
Yeah. Well, give an honest review.
Honest.
Honest. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But constructive.
That too.
Always constructive.
Yeah.
If there are things that you don't like, you can frame that in a kind way.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be an attack on the author.
Right.
We don't like that.
No, but it happened.
Oh, it does. It does.
We got one that was like, wow.
Yeah, there's always those outliers.
Yeah. Well, it actually made me laugh. It was so bad, you know.
Well, that's the right reaction. Getting good.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, yeah, I think that's something. If there are any of you want to be authors listening, you cannot be thin-skinned. I know this is your baby and that you birthed it and it means a lot to you, but working with the public, there are going to be some people that like it and some people that hate it. And that's just life. And it's okay. Everybody's entitled to their point of view.
Yeah, and there's mean people out there.
Yeah. And if I can interject there, I mean, there's an awful lot of temptation as an author to respond to some of those negative criticisms. Yeah. Don't do it. It doesn't do you any good.
Oh, absolutely don't do it. Actually, I did use that bad review in some of my tweets as like a counterpoint, because one of the things he had said, it was full of cliches. And the front of our book, our first book is called Bioprints, and it has a smoking gun on the cover that goes around to the back of the cover. And I said, that should have been your first clue that there are cliches in this book. And yes, we meant to put them in there.
We meant to put the smoking gun
just
on the
like
cover.
The names that you chose, you know, the satirical names. You can use cliches to be satirical and funny. I enjoy that. I enjoy reading that. So this person didn't, and that's okay. He didn't have to.
Right.
But he didn't have to be quite so awful.
Right.
He went through for the throat. It was bad. But anyway, don't let that sort of thing bother you.
Right.
But definitely, if you really like a book, please explain why you liked the book without any spoilers.
Right. Let me ask you, I want to kind of put you on the spot a little bit.
That's what everyone likes to hear.
Yeah. The process of self-publishing. What did you find to be the most difficult part?
He's not self-published.
Well, actually, technically, I am. I mean, this is an established press, but you know, with self-publishing, you're basically paying everything up front. You know, as opposed to traditional publishing, where you can advance. You're working with an agent. It's very difficult. I mean, you may know the numbers better than I do, but I've heard there are 1 million self-published books in the U.S. every year. And it's very hard to get attention. I mean, we can talk about the marketing part of it if you like, but I mean, that's just extremely difficult. Social media obviously is hopefully your number one event, but that's just not a natural for a lot of people.
Yes.
And the idea of doing it every day or something like that is just not something a lot of authors want to do.
Yeah.
And it's just very difficult to stand out. I will tell you, I've been delighted. I've had a lot of terrific reviews from professional reviewers, but not the New York Times or not the Washington Post or not the New York Review of Books. So, a lot of books just aren't visible to a lot of readers.
Right.
That's hopefully why folks like you are. It's great to be able to just get some kind of recognition out there.
Yes. It's why we do it.
Yeah. And I bless you for it because, in the whole agent business, I don't know if you talk about that with any of your authors, but
yes,
it's difficult. And I think I have an idea of some of the things that they're looking for, and I'm not part of that group. So,
right. You need to have a newsletter with at least 100,000 followers, and all kinds of criteria that they
and I think they're looking for young ethnic voices, and it was somebody who they can nurture for a career.
Yeah,
and that's certainly not going to apply to a lot of people.
That's right. That's right. I also think that for a lot of people, now you've been a journalist your whole working life, really. So you're used to being around the printed word. But for a lot of self-published authors, indie authors, we have not been. And so I think the self-promotion for us was the hardest thing to get over, that hump, and to self-promote, because that's what you have to do. You have to promote yourself, so that people will want to read your book. And I think that for a lot of people, that does not come naturally, No,
it doesn't. It's hard work.
It's hard work, and you've been taught to be humble and not self-aggrandize. And it's like,
and advertising.
You can only blow your own horn so much.
Yeah,
it gets boring.
Advertising is like a bottomless pit.
It is.
It's like there's hardly any return on it. It doesn't seem like anyway.
Yeah, Amazon, the Amazon advertising thing has never.
Oh my gosh!
And there are books written about it. There are professionals who give seminars about it, but
about the algorithms and how to play the algorithms.
Yeah. That's where they make their money.
Right. Algorithm is probably those people that write those books, that's how they're making their money. But algorithm is probably one of my least favorite words.
Understandable.
After synchronicity, which is another big word this year that I'm just like, I'm over it, folks.
Right.
Sorry, but I am. But and I think everybody has to be aware of that. And so when you write, you should write because you love to write, and you have to write, and you want to write, and then
don't expect to get rich.
No. And one of your earlier interviews, he said he was a storyteller, and that's really what a lot of us, certainly with writing fiction, we have to be storytellers. We need a plot, we need characters, and we need to engage the reader. And
that's right.
It sounds pretty simple, but it isn't.
Right.
No.
We've all read books that were written not well. You didn't like the characters.
Right.
It wasn't well written. And, then you kind of give up on it.
Yeah. But we've also read a lot of books that are written well and that are very engaging, and you get lost in, and, that's what we all want to do and that we strive to do. I know that, we had both written books when we were younger, which will never see the light of day and should not see the light of day because they were really bad. So if there's anyone aspiring, just practice, keep writing.
Yeah, I wrote a couple of unfinished thrillers early in, 20, 30 years ago, and they'll never see the light of day and never finish them. And they didn't quite work.
Right.
I didn't have enough time or mental energy to really work it out.
That happens, doesn't it? It really does. I think people should know that too. I had told you earlier before we went on the air that we've been researching a book that takes place in early Phoenicia. It's a book about Jezebel, about her life before she became a big character in the Bible. Because her life is really fascinating and who she was born to. But it's very difficult to find research.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
On that time period.
Sure.
And we don't have any professors that we know or that we have a relationship with that we can go to and say, okay, would this work at that time period? But it's a fascinating time period in history. I mean, I really like it. Well, you graduated with a degree in history, so it's just the Phoenicians.
Well, my interest is much more in 19th and 20th century American history. So
was it?
Nowhere near the time period you're talking about.
Yeah, when we had the big molasses brouhaha in Massachusetts.
That too,
well, Speaking of time periods.
It's time for our next commercial break.
Get our sponsors out here. So don't go away.
We'll be right back.
Be right back.
Madison Jackson loved being a cop. A young girl is raped and murdered near Burnett Reservoir. Madison vows to get justice for the child. Madison travels to the heart of Mexican cartel country. She is kidnapped, tortured. Will Madison ever make it home? Justice by Kelly Marshall, only at Amazon.com.
Many secrets are hidden within the darkness of the jungle. Behold, this one about a man, a woman, a black jaguar, and an ancient Maya legend. Two Faces of the Jaguar is a novel by George Dismukes that will take you deep into the jungle and capture your imagination until the last word. Two Faces of the Jaguar is book one of a trilogy. Two Faces of the Jaguar, where only the adventurous dare to read.
Two Faces of the Jaguar, The Lost City, and The Jaguar's Quest are available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and many other bookseller websites. Two Faces of the Jaguar, the book people are talking about. Get your copy today.
In a world where advancing technology is outpacing crime solving, the O'Rourke team continues their relentless pursuit of justice. Bioprints is the first book in the O'Rourke crime novel series where it's high-tech crime versus old-fashioned detective work. Visit carternovels.com or amazon.com and check out Bioprints today.
Today. That got cut off.
Ooh, how'd that happen?
I don't know. Welcome back. Go ahead.
Well, we've talked about what you've got out there. What's in the future for Jerry Marshall?
Jeffrey
Marshall. We changed your name to protect you. I don't know.
Well, I've started work on another novel, which again would be different. This would be definitely much more of definitely a thriller, and it's written in the first person from the point of view of a woman who is engaged in a casual affair that's ended very badly. But I'm really not. I haven't written a little bit in a while, and I'm kind of mulling some of the issues that I need to address. But it's well underway, and we'll see how it goes.
That's very much like a lot of the authors we know how they write, and it is exactly how we write. You might get started in one direction, and you get going, and then you're like, this just isn't working for me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going where I want it to go.
Yeah, but writing in the first person is kind of It's a challenge because you want to have some interior monologue as well.
That's
and
right.
Let the reader know more about what this person is thinking, and then but you can't overload the story with that either, and then it becomes kind of a interior monologue to the nth degree.
Right.
So it's delicate balance. I'm still trying to sort it out.
Yeah. I was talking one time about how I was writing a character at the time who was always being sarcastic. Okay. In person, if we're speaking, you can tell if I'm being sarcastic by my body language, my facial expression, the tone of my voice. Writing that in a way that the reader will understand that it's supposed to be funny, and not serious is difficult. It requires a lot of, as she raised her eyebrows or she looked to the side. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And I think I managed to do some of that in Squeeze Plays, particularly when I'm kind of looking down on Winston, who is not the brightest bulb. and I try to make that clear. And some of the things he does or some of the things he says, I'm trying to introduce some kind of satire. And that's not the only satirical element as well, but you can't overdo that either.
Right.
Because then your narrative kind of slows down, and that's
That's what I'm saying. Writing is a tightrope. You need to get it across without boring the reader to death.
Exactly.
And it's not easy, folks.
It isn't. One of the things I've always tried to, any of my novels, that I've tried to have a sense of narrative pace where it's, you've heard the phrase page turner, but you want to get the reader, to in one chapter and then, hey, what's next?
Right.
And without that, if they're kind of left flat at the end of the chapter and it's like, well.
Yeah.
Maybe,
not
maybe, maybe I'll go get a yogurt or something,
Yeah.
Right.
That's not good. We want them to read the book. Definitely. You were talking about how difficult it is to get your book noticed and get it out there. You can try with the book cover and the title, and then as much, social media stuff as you can and advertising that you can. And
you can also pay for reviews with review services, and there are a number out there, as you know. Kirkus is maybe one of the more well-known ones.
Yes.
But there are, I don't know the number, but I've done that with, more than a half dozen, and most of them have been very fruitful. Now, whether that really accrues to the bottom line is the question.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you consider how much you have to pay Kirkus for a review. It's
exactly.
Not cheap.
And any of those services, are several $100s is very common.
Oh yeah, I think Kirkus is $400.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it is. Anyway, may have gone up recently.
Before the recent inflation.
Yeah, it was. It may be more now, but we were talking when we first started. We were like, and it wasn't as bad then as it is now. I mean, it's only gotten exponentially more difficult. James Patterson at the time, who, come on, everybody knows him. He sells a lot of books. He sells a lot of books in a lot of genres. And he was wearing Easter Bunny costume to sell one of his children's books
on TV.
On TV.
That's crazy.
James Patterson hopping around in an Easter Bunny costume.
Good sense of humor, but
yeah, but that shows you how tough the market it is. And he has,
Yeah, you wouldn't think he'd have to prostrate himself.
He's got big people behind him,
Yes.
but.
And lots of people.
Yeah,
working for him.
Huge team of people working for him. And still, he has to do things like that, This is the person who writes about Alex Cross people. It has been TV shows, movies, never mind all his novels. So.
Yeah.
So it's not for the faint-hearted to be an author.
You mentioned a collection of poetry.
Yeah,
you did.
River Ice.
Do you think you'll ever get back to that, or have you?
Not as a volume. I've and I do I do occasionally submit poetry to, one outlet or another, that mostly online, and not, the major names either. And I confess to I'm certainly not a great poet. Maybe I'm a good poet, but that was really, and collecting those just seemed like a good place for me to start to kind of, branch out into being a writer and not a journalist. And that, it worked out. I mean, I don't think any, and poetry, as you probably know, I don't know whether you speak with any poets or not, but
oh yeah,
we've come a long way from the days of Emily Dickinson or Robert Frost or Carl Sandburg, when these were major names.
Yeah.
You cannot stop somebody on the street in Tampa and say, name a contemporary poet. They're not going to know.
No.
Poets are not, it's just not a medium. And it's a very subjective medium too, because I read stuff that I see in the New Yorker, and I don't read the New Yorker much anymore, but it left me cold. I mean, this is supposed to be the top of the genre. So,
right.
It's not something that I'm probably going to pursue much at this point, to answer your question, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the truth is, though, everybody's opinion is subjective.
Yes.
So if they're at the top of the genre, if they're the best of the best, that's subjective. There is no objective way to look at that and say, this is brilliant.
But there are times when you read something like something like from Robert Lowell or something like that, and say, that's brilliant.
Yes.
And widely recognized as such, but that's rare.
Yes. There are some things that you read that touch a part of the human soul that everyone responds to,
Yeah.
It's sort of like comedians. Some of them are so good of just talking about everyday life. Seinfeld and Larry David jumps to mind, that they just tell the human condition in such a way that it resonates with everyone. And that's what poetry is all about, right? Is it resonates within you.
Yeah, I think so. But it does it in such a way that, a lot of people just kind of, turn away or don't understand.
Yeah.
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 Well, a lot of it's social platform to, about politics and the state of the world,
Whereas in the past it was romance and
romance
different
and
things like that.
nice things.
Well,
right. A lot of my poetry was about nature or things related to nature.
There you go.
there you go.
Which is good.
Yes.
That's nice.
Yes.
It's fun to read.
Like haikus are usually about nature.
Right.
I like that. I like nature. We have a travel trailer and we go camping a lot. We like being outside. It's fun to get out in nature and connect with nature. Yeah.
I like to hike out here, but it's nothing. It's a seasonal activity because it's a little warm in the summer.
I know.
Just a touch.
Yeah. We've been to Arizona frequently. We really love your neck of the woods, to tell you the truth. Navajo country to me is stunning. It's beautiful. Yeah. It's not a fun place to live if you're a Navajo, I don't think, because it's a hard life, but they have a beautiful scenery.
We visit a lot up around Cottonwood and Sedona.
Sedona's become such a mecca for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has.
Really
and we've been going there for over 40 years, and it's
you're
different.
among the pioneers.
Yeah.
I mean, now you go through town and you literally takes you hours to get from one end of the town to the next. But the scenery is still breathtaking and amazing. But we stay in Cottonwood. We stay outside of Sedona. We don't stay in. Do you know Jerome at all?
Yes, I've been there a number of times. Pretty striking place. Hard to park though.
Oh my gosh.
Hard to walk up the stairs to go up to the different levels.
The first time we went there was really a long time ago, maybe 40 years ago. And we were towing a trailer, and he came in through Jerome and went on down into Cottonwood.
Right.
And
the ride down was fun.
said to him, never again. We are never, ever, ever doing that again.
Yeah, it's a pretty hairy drive.
Pulling a trailer. It's, I mean, you're
ridiculous.
Just like, oh my gosh, are we going to still be alive at the end of this?
And that was back in the day when we had an old car.
And an old, smaller, much smaller trailer.
Smaller trailer, and bricks weren't all that great on either one of them. So it was an adventure for sure.
That's true.
Something to write about, actually.
Maybe people our age could relate as to what it was like when they were younger.
Yeah.
Plus, we had 6 kids, so it was always crazy.
So do you have any more? I know you've already given some advice, but do you have any more additional advice you'd give to a newbie that's just starting out, trying to get started, but hasn't quite gotten that?
There are a lot of self-publishing outfits out there, and I think I've even seen lists of recommended or non-recommended ones, but that's always a difficult choice. I made a wrong one with my book Undetected. As I say, the publisher folded after 6 months, and any royalties I collected in that time disappeared. So that was not a happy experience. And I had to republish under another imprint. But that's a difficult decision. Probably requires a certain amount of research for sure. And then, you want to find out are you going to be edited? Is there going to be proofreading? There's an array of services that some people will offer and some won't. And you certainly have to have a certain level of confidence in your own ability to take advice and to stick to your story. Although, unfortunately, I think that my sense of a lot of self-publishers, maybe less so now, but is they'll publish anything you give them without not even any proofreading or anything, and just start collecting, for their production and whatever marketing they may do, which is probably minimal. So you're out, $5,000-8,000, and then don't expect to make it back in sales unless you're really fortunate.
Yeah.
So be careful.
Yeah, be careful, and realize that it's not a way to make money, as you said, Joan. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I did say that. Don't do it for that reason.
Yeah, there are very few James Pattersons out there.
That's right.
That is true.
There are very few. There are some. And a lot of people who make that kind of money were already celebrities before they made.
Yeah, and that brings up the whole subject of, like memoirs. It's very easy if you have some major trauma to talk about, or you're a celebrity. But if you're not, what's your life story worth to a reader? I mean, I couldn't write a memoir about my life and make it fascinating. It's not fascinating.
You could name it Everyman.
Right.
There's your title right there.
Michelle Obama can write about her life and sell millions and millions of copies because she's a figure. But,
that's right.
If her name were Michelle Lee or Michelle Jones, it would be a different story.
That's right.
True.
It's the same for podcasts. If you're a celebrity, you'll have millions of viewers. If you're not, you're going to have to earn all of your viewers.
And I'm sure it's getting more competitive every year.
No, we've only been doing this for 2 years, but I believe that you are right.
Yes.
I think everyone has a podcast. Right. But we love ours. We love ours.
Goes with the territory. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing.
It's been my pleasure
with us.
And I know that you've talked to a lot of authors and indie authors, and I think anything that you can do to give us a little spotlight is wonderful.
Thank you. It's the reason we do it.
Okay, so we're going to move you over to the side here.
Okay.
And stay right where you're at until we come back to you.
Very good.
All righty. And let's see. Join us next week, February 1st, Magnolia Bluff Reveal, books 10 and 11 in the series with Linda Bertle and Cindy Davis.
Which is book 1 and 2 of the second season.
Of the second season.
To be clear.
Yeah, yeah. And this coming Saturday, right where you're at, you can watch episode Rewind, Nick Chiarkis. I always have difficulty pronouncing your name, Nick. Sorry about that. January 28th, right here, 5:30 p.m. Saturday. And
I also wanted to say, please go to our YouTube, Indie Book Source, but I want them to go to the Meet the Author podcast and give us a like and also subscribe.
Yeah, we need subscribers.
And if you are watching this pre-recorded podcast, please go ahead and leave comments. We'll get back to you. And if there's anything really pertinent that Jeffrey needs to answer, we'll make sure that he gets those comments and he can answer you himself. Or you can even comment at his website and get in touch with him that way.
Right. So stay tuned for the next minute. There's a little, at least the next minute, there's a little commercial for Voice of Indie podcast. If you want to stay right where you're at, they give you details on how to get over to that. Okay. And I guess until next time.
That's all, folks. Bye.
Live every Wednesday, your Voice of Indie hosts Beam Weeks and Stephen G's welcome authors, musicians, publishing industry pros, artists, and assorted creative guests for an exciting interactive hour. Call in during the show or post questions and comments on Twitter for responses in real time. Meet your favorite indie creators, learn inside tips, network, and promote your work. The link for each week's show is pinned on Twitter atop @VoiceOfIndie. And you can receive the link every Wednesday morning in your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter at freshinkgroup.com. Check out Voice of Indie every Wednesday on Blog Talk Radio and catch hundreds of episodes archived everywhere from our websites to our YouTube channel and Spotify.
Thank you for joining us here on Meet the Author. Make sure you stay up to date with our show by clicking like, follow, and share. And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, and more. See you next time on WLFE-DV.com.